I think it's safe to say that at the very end of this week's episode of Diamond is Unbreakable, that Kira Yoshikage is about to have his ass freaking handed to him, because he has been confronted by all of the major characters of the series. His main attacks, Killer Queen, have been completely nullified, and he is completely cornered. But there could be some sort of epic twist, and I can't wait to see how that's all going to play out in the final episode of Diamond is Unbreakable. That being said, this week's episode was immensely satisfying, as Josuke finally got his revenge against the psychotic serial killer himself. This week's episode, to me, opened up with a really funny scene, where Josuke and Ayato and Okuyas had just run away to this random empty house, and one of the neighbors comes out and confronts Kira. And this neighbor is basically just a complete perv. He's obsessed with a girl that lives next door, and he frankly just wants to see her panties. And he actually ends up finding these panties in a bush, which Kira transformed into a bomb. He touches them and explodes. It was a really funny way to open up this week's episode, showing that, again, even though the series can go to dark places, it still has a really great sense of humor. It gets even better with the fact that you have a great scene where Kira is actually talking to his boss at work and apologizing for the fact that he's going to be late to the office, constantly bowing as he's doing it. That scene was freaking hilarious. It's also our first clue as to how he's actually going to be attacking Josuke while he's inside this house, because most of this episode is about Josuke trying to figure out Kira's weakness and trying to figure out how he can actually attack this guy. Kira is actually still using the stray cat to create these big explosive bubbles, and he's firing them into the house. And at first, I thought that they were like these heat-seeking missiles. They were just going to keep honing in on the opponent. But what's really going on, and this is kind of a spoiler warning, so if you haven't seen the episode, check it out and then come back to this review, is that Kira's father is actually hanging out inside of Ayato's jacket. And he's talking on this cell phone and relaying all of the information that he sees inside of the house to his son, which allows him to attack perfectly. It takes a long time for Josuke to actually figure this out, and hell, he even sustains a lot of damage in this episode, dodging a lot of the blasts and getting a lot of, like, these parts of the house which explode embedded right into his body. But he's also managing to weaponize a lot of the items in the house by breaking this flower pot and transforming it into this really badass looking heart, which he fires right outside of the house, which magically almost seemed to hit Kira. But again, this is JoJo's, so there's going to be a lot of ridiculous strategy behind this, and apparently we learn that Josuke can actually infuse his blood into items that he has reconstructed, and there's a little bit of blood on Kira's shoulder. And this blood ends up being the perfect target, because when Josuke ends up sending the shrapnel outside, it immediately goes towards Kira and ends up just getting stuck right into his back, blasting him like the force of a gun. It was a really satisfying scene, and it got even better when at the very end of the episode he confronts him outside. Now, this is the part of the episode for me that I frankly just loved. I was literally jumping out of my seat when you had Crazy Diamond going up against Killer Queen, and we had some fantastic choreography moments with him constantly dodging all of the attacks and just hitting him with all of these big solid punches, to the point where Killer Queen's face actually starts to crack, which deals a ton of damage to him. And just when it seems like Killer Queen is going to come back on top and start attacking him, Okuyas finally comes back, risen from the dead. That's right, apparently he's going to be just fine. At the beginning of the episode, they make it seem like Okuyas is going to die, but when he was basically at death's door, he started to see the light, which usually when you die is kind of a bad thing. Never go towards the freaking light. But apparently this gave him the opportunity to communicate with his brother Keicho. And Keicho's like, so what are your big plans now? Are you going to continue to follow me? Or do you have some unfinished business to take care of? And Okuyas decides, yes, I am going to take care of this business. I'm going to go back to Morio and save my friends and act like the badass hero. Okuyas' abilities truly come into their own in this week's episode, as he's able to wipe away these big explosive bubbles, and he does it in such a badass JoJo fashion, which means lots of cool poses. The episode ends with Kira getting his ass handed to him and then being confronted by a lot of the main characters from the series, such as Koichi, Rohan, and frickin' Jotaro himself. So I imagine in the next episode, he's going to get one hell of a beatdown. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Diamond is Unbreakable? The show never ceases to amaze me how creative it is with its battle sequences. This is not like Dragon Ball or Naruto or One Piece, where the character who just believes in the power of friendship, or they can fire a super powerful beam, or they're like the chosen one. There's a lot of strategy that goes into every single battle, and Josuke continues to surprise me with what he's capable of. I had no idea that he could infuse his blood into his techniques, and he does that to great effect in this episode, to not only figure out where Kira is, but to basically completely demolish him with his freaking Crazy Diamond. The sequence where Crazy Diamond went hand to hand with Killer Queen, without a doubt my favorite sequence from this episode. It just looked so great. That, especially when they actually change up the colors, I just love when they do that in this series. It just makes everything seem so much more epic. That, and it was just really satisfying to finally start to see Kira lose, because he's been on top of his game the entire series. It was only a matter of time before his pegs were going to start to get knocked down, and Josuke did it with style. That and the fact that Okuyas came back as well I thought was a really satisfying moment. A really heartwarming scene too. Again, like in last week's episode, I figured he wasn't going to die because the narrator hadn't come in and said that he was dead, and when he made his big appearance at the end of this episode, I wasn't too shocked by it, but it got me really damned excited, especially because he wasn't a pushover at all. He was able to get rid of those big explosive techniques by using his The Hand abilities, which I thought were really freaking awesome and really well animated in this episode. This was just a satisfying one, to finally see the villain get his comeuppance, who continues to be, honestly, one of the greatest anime villains that I have ever seen. His motivations are not crazy. He doesn't want to control the world. He just wants to live his life and kill people maliciously. But it's not gonna work anymore, because he has fucked with Josuke and all of his friends. And like I said, the next episode, I can't wait to see what they're going to do with it. I wonder if there's going to be a twist, and he's gonna have to pull one hell of a rabbit out of his hat, because the freaking stray cat was taken away by Okuyas in this episode. He just did one swipe and boom, it's in his hand. I'm surprised he didn't crush it right there. Maybe he'd feel bad about killing some sort of stray cat which is transformed into a flower, but they don't know anything about that. So I'm really interested to see how they're going to handle that, but the fact that all of the main characters are there, I mean, he has to be screwed, unless he's just got one more big devastating technique. It might even involve Ayato, like maybe he's going to take him hostage again and try to use him as leverage to get away from these people. I mean, Kira's basically at the breaking point here, so I can't wait to see what he's going to do, because we've never seen him pushed this far. We've never seen him lose his cool this much, so I can't wait to see how he's going to handle this situation. It's just a really exciting time. And this was an incredibly exciting episode right here, with great battle strategies and a lot of satisfying poetic justice from Josuke and Okuyas. Guys, let's get excited for the final episode of Diamond is Unbreakable. I can't wait to see it. And if the series was a success, I really hope that we're going to be able to see the next portion of the JoJo manga adapted into an anime, because watching the JoJo series in anime format has just been one of the greatest freaking anime experiences of my life. I am now a hardcore JoJo fan, and I just want more. So I can't wait to see what they're going to deliver. This episode right here certainly delivered, and that's why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. Check it out, JoJo fans. Let's face it, you already have. If you did watch this week's episode, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. What do you hope to see from the final episode of the series? How are they going to defeat Kira Yoshikage? Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, please give it a like and leave me a comment or two. I will see you next time, and as always, stay dandy, baby.